Hey there, welcome back. Ready to dive into some seriously fascinating social dynamics? You've sent us a whole chapter from a textbook all about cooperation, competition, and conflict. Looks like you're about to become a master of navigating group projects and so much more.
That's right. These dynamics aren't just for group projects. Understanding these forces can help you decode pretty much ANY social situation, whether it's at work in your relationships or just out there in the world.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The chapter kicks off by defining social interaction.
It's basically that constant give and take where our actions influence each other, like a dance, but maybe a little less graceful, with a few accidental bumps along the way.
I like that. And this social dance relies on two key things.
Social contact and communication.
Now, when we say social contact, are we just talking about physically being in the same room?
Not at all. It's ANY kind of meaningful connection, whether it's through letters, phone calls, or even, social media these days.
So even a heated debate on Twitter counts.
Absolutely. You're still connecting and exchanging ideas.
Yeah.
But the real magic happens with communication. Think gestures, symbols, language, those tools that allow us to truly interact. And that's where our stars of the show come in. Cooperation, competition, and conflict.
Okay, let's start with cooperation. The chapter defines it as working together for shared goals and rewards. Simple enough, right? But what I found really cool was how it breaks down the words origins, co meaning together, and operare meaning to work.
Yeah.
It emphasizes that joint effort, that shared journey towards something bigger.
Exactly. Cooperation goes way beyond just being nice or playing fair. It's woven into our psychology, into the very fabric of society. Think about it, without cooperation, there would be NO families, communities, or civilizations as we know them. It's essential for individual well-being and D, for keeping the world running smoothly.
Now, that's a big picture perspective.
Right.
But it makes sense when you think about all the ways we rely on each other, even in simple everyday things. The chapter goes on to talk about different types of cooperation. There's direct cooperation, where everyone is doing the same thing together, like volunteering at a community garden.
Right. Everyone's got their hands in the soil working toward the same goal.
Exactly. And then there's indirect cooperation, where people specialize in different tasks to achieve a shared goal. Think of a restaurant kitchen. Everyone's got their specific role, but they're all working together to create delicious meals.
A symphony of flavors, all thanks to cooperation. Have you ever been part of a project, maybe at work or school, where everyone brought their unique skills to the table? That's indirect cooperation in action. And without it, we wouldn't be able to achieve those complex goals that require specialized expertise.
It's like that old saying, two heads are better than one, but on a much grander scale.
All right, let's shift gears now and talk about competition. Sometimes competition gets a bad rap, but the chapter makes a really interesting point. It defines competition as a struggle for limited resources, but it emphasizes that it's often impersonal and even unconscious. It's like we're all competing in some way, whether it's for economic standing, recognition, even just a parking spot sometimes.
It's fascinating how this drive is embedded in us, isn't it? And what's often overlooked is that competition can actually have positive functions in society.
Positive, really. Tell me more.
For sure. Competition helps determine social hierarchy, who takes on what roles. Like it or not, we need some kind of structure to keep society organized. And competition also fuels progress. Think of the race to develop new technologies. That constant push to be the best often leads to groundbreaking innovations.
So it's not just about winning, it's about pushing boundaries and pushing each other to improve. Exactly. Healthy competition can be a powerful driver of change and growth, both on a societal and personal level. Think about sports. The desire to win pushes athletes to train harder, break records, and constantly raise the bar for everyone else.
Okay, I'm starting to see the upside. But I know competition can also have its downsides, right? Things like frustration, monopolies, unhealthy rivalries.
Of course. Unchecked competition can definitely lead to negative consequences. It's all about finding that balance, creating a space for healthy competition, while also having rules and regulations in place to ensure fairness and prevent things from getting out of control.
Makes sense. It's like that saying, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. All right, I'm feeling the adrenaline already, ready to tackle the final piece of the puzzle.
Bring it on.
Let's dive into the realm of conflict. The chapter defines conflict as a conscious and deliberate opposition, emphasizing its personal nature. And honestly, we're surrounded by examples of conflict, from everyday disagreements to global conflicts that dominate the headlines.
It's unavoidable, really. Conflict is woven into the tapestry of human interaction. But what's helpful is understanding the root causes, the triggers that spark these clashes.
So what are some of the main culprits behind these conflicts?
Well, the chapter highlights several key sources. Individual differences, for starters. We all have our own unique personalities, values, and beliefs. And sometimes those differences clash. Then you have cultural differences, different norms and traditions bumping up against each other.
Like when you travel to a new country and accidentally commit a major faux pas because you didn't understand the local customs. Been there.
Exactly. Then there are clashing interests, whether it's competition for resources, power struggles, or just plain old disagreements about the best way to do something. And of course, we can't forget about the ever-present force of social change. Progress often comes with conflict, as people challenge the status quo and fight for new order.
So basically, anytime you have humans with different needs, values, or goals interacting, there's bound to be some friction. Makes sense, but also a bit daunting. Is there any good news about conflict?
Absolutely. Conflict, while often seen as a negative force, can actually be a powerful engine for positive change.
Wait, really?
Think about it this way. Conflict forces us to confront issues, reevaluate our positions, and sometimes even discover solutions we wouldn't have considered otherwise.
So it's not about avoiding conflict altogether, it's about learning to manage it constructively.
Exactly. It's about recognizing when conflict is necessary and approaching it in a way that leads to growth and positive outcomes. Think about those pivotal moments in history. The Civil Rights Movement, the fight for women's suffrage. These were periods of intense conflict, but they ultimately led to progress and a more just society.
It's like that saying, no pain, no gain, but applied to social change. So how do we know when conflict is actually beneficial? Is there a way to tell the difference between destructive conflict and the kind that leads to positive change?
That's the million-dollar question. And while there's no simple answer, a good rule of thumb is to ask yourself, is this conflict bringing to light issues that need to be addressed? If the answer is yes, then it's likely serving a valuable purpose.
Like shining a spotlight on things that have been hidden in the shadows. It's not always comfortable, but sometimes those uncomfortable conversations are exactly what we need to move forward. Now, the chapter mentioned different types of conflict, like overt versus covert, personal versus corporate. It even dives into those 5 types outlined by Gillen and Gillen: personal, racial, class, political, international. That seems like a lot to unpack.
It's a lot. And while each type of conflict has its own unique nuances and potential consequences, what's important to remember is that conflict is multifaceted. It can be destructive, leading to tension, disruption, and even violence. But it can also be constructive, forcing us to confront issues, reevaluate our positions, and ultimately find better solutions. It all depends on how we choose to engage with it.
So it's not just about the type of conflict, it's about our approach and how we choose to navigate it.
Exactly. And that's where understanding these dynamics comes in. It gives us the tools to recognize different types of conflict, assess their potential impact, and choose the most effective strategies for navigating them.
It's like having a secret decoder ring for human behavior, helping us decipher the complex language of social interaction.
I like that. And the more we understand this language, the better equipped we'll be to create positive change in our own lives and in the world around us.
So how can understanding these dynamics actually help us in our everyday lives? What kind of practical takeaways can we apply?
Well, for starters, it's about becoming more aware of these forces at play in our interactions. Pay attention to how cooperation, competition, and conflict are shaping the dynamics of your relationships, your work environment, even your internal thought processes. Once you start to see these patterns, you can start to make more conscious choices about how you engage.
So it's like having a superpower. You can anticipate challenges, navigate difficult conversations, and even influence outcomes by understanding how these forces are working.
Exactly. And another key takeaway is the importance of communication. Clear, honest communication is essential for effective cooperation, healthy competition, and constructive conflict resolution. It's about being able to express your needs and goals, listen to others, and find common ground.
Communication. It's the glue that holds everything together.
I love that analogy.
Mm.
And remember, communication isn't just about words. It's also about body language, tone of voice, and active listening. It's about creating a space where everyone feels heard and respected, even when disagreements arise. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever been in a situation where a simple misunderstanding led to a major conflict?
Oh, absolutely.
Clear communication could have prevented that whole situation.
I think we've all been there at some point. We've talked a lot about the big picture of cooperation, competition, and conflict. But I'm curious to bring it down to a more personal level. How can understanding these dynamics help us achieve our own individual goals?
That's a great question. Think about it this way. Your goals, whatever they may be, likely involve other people in some way, whether it's collaborating on a project, competing for a promotion, or navigating a challenging relationship. Understanding these social dynamics can give you a huge advantage.
It's like having a roadmap. You can anticipate obstacles, leverage opportunities, and build stronger relationships by understanding the forces that shape human interaction.
Precisely. It's about being a savvy social navigator, using your knowledge of these dynamics to steer towards success. And remember, success isn't always about winning or coming out on top. It's about achieving your goals in a way that aligns with your values and contributes to the well-being of those around you.
That's a really important point. It's about finding that balance between individual ambition and the needs of the collective. Now, one thing that really struck me from the chapter was the discussion of accommodation. It's presented as this resolution to conflict, a way of finding harmony. But I'm wondering, is accommodation always the best approach? What about situations where compromise might mean sacrificing your values or settling for less than you deserve?
That's a very insightful question. And it's important to remember that accommodation isn't about blindly giving in or surrendering your principles. It's about finding a way to coexist peacefully while still honoring your own needs and values. And sometimes that means setting boundaries, standing up for what you believe in, and even walking away from situations that are toxic or harmful.
So accommodation doesn't mean being a pushover.
Right.
It's about choosing your battles wisely and finding solutions that work for everyone involved.
Exactly. And sometimes the best way to accommodate is to simply agree to disagree. Not every conflict needs to be resolved. Sometimes it's enough to acknowledge different perspectives, respect boundaries, and find a way to move forward peacefully.
All right, this deep dive has been packed with insights. We've covered so much ground, from the foundations of social interaction to the complex interplay of cooperation, competition, and conflict. And we've even explored how understanding these dynamics can help you achieve your own personal goals. But I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
We have. There's so much more to explore. But I believe the most important takeaway is this. These social forces are constantly shaping our world. By becoming more aware of them, we can become more conscious and intentional in our interactions, leading to more fulfilling relationships, more productive collaborations, and ultimately a more harmonious society.
Beautifully said. Now, I'm curious, what final thought would you like to leave our listener with? Something to ponder as they continue to explore these concepts in their own lives.
You know what I find truly fascinating is that these dynamics, cooperation, competition, conflict, they aren't just external forces acting upon us. They also exist within each of us. We cooperate with ourselves when we set goals and work towards them. We compete with ourselves when we strive to be better, to push our limits. And we even experience internal conflict when our desires and values clash.
Whoa, that's a really interesting perspective. So it's not just about understanding how these forces operate in the world around us. It's also about recognizing them within ourselves. That's deep.
It is, and that's where things get really interesting, because by understanding these internal dynamics, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves, our motivations, and how we interact with the world around us.
It's like mastering your inner game before stepping onto the larger playing field.
Exactly. And that internal mastery can make all the difference in how we navigate the complex social landscape. So if we can understand these dynamics within ourselves, can we actually use that knowledge to navigate the external world more effectively? Is it like mastering your own internal game before stepping onto the larger playing field?
I love that analogy. It's like leveling up your social skills by first understanding your own inner workings.
Exactly. By understanding our own internal drives and tendencies, we become more self-aware, more empathetic to others, and ultimately more skillful at navigating those complex social dances. It's like learning to read the music before trying to conduct the orchestra.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So how can we actually start to recognize these dynamics within ourselves? It seems a little abstract.
Well, it starts with paying attention to your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. When you find yourself in a situation where you're feeling competitive, for example, ask yourself, what's driving this feeling? Is it a desire to win, a fear of losing, or maybe a need for recognition?
So it's about becoming more mindful of our own internal dialogue, those whispers in our heads that shape our actions.
Exactly. And once you start to identify those patterns, you can start to challenge them. Ask yourself, is this competition serving me well? Is it helping me grow? Or is it holding me back?
It's like becoming a detective of your own mind, uncovering those hidden motives and patterns that influence your behavior. Now, I'm also curious about how this internal awareness translates into better external interactions. How does understanding our own internal competition, for instance, help us navigate competition in the real world?
Great question. When you understand your own triggers and tendencies, you're less likely to be caught off guard by other people's competitive behavior. You can approach those situations with more empathy and understanding, recognizing that their behavior might stem from similar internal drivers.
So it's not about taking it personally or getting defensive. It's about understanding that everyone's coming to the table with their own internal baggage, so to speak.
Exactly. And that understanding allows you to respond in a more measured and strategic way. You can choose whether to engage in the competition, find a way to cooperate, or even gracefully step aside.
It's like having a secret weapon in your social arsenal, the power of self-awareness. Now, what about conflict? We've talked about how conflict can be both destructive and constructive. But how can we tell the difference when it's happening inside our own heads?
That's a really important point. Internal conflict, those clashes between our own desires, values, and beliefs can be incredibly draining and lead to a lot of stress and anxiety. But like external conflict, it can also be a catalyst for growth and change.
So how can we determine whether our internal conflict is helping us or hindering us?
Well, it's helpful to ask yourself, is this conflict forcing me to examine my values and priorities? Is it pushing me to make changes that align with my authentic self?
So if it's leading to self-reflection and positive action, it's probably a good thing. But if it's just causing stress and inaction, it might be time to reevaluate.
Exactly. Internal conflict is often a sign that something needs to shift. Maybe you're holding on to outdated beliefs, or maybe you're pursuing goals that no longer resonate with who you are.
It's like a wake-up call from your inner self saying, hey, something's not quite right here. Let's take a closer look. Now, I'm also curious about how understanding our internal conflicts can help us navigate external conflicts more effectively.
When we're aware of our own internal struggles, we're more likely to approach external conflicts with empathy and understanding.
Hmm.
We recognize that other people might be grappling with their own internal conflicts, which might be influencing their behavior.
So it's like that saying, everyone's fighting a battle you know nothing about.
Exactly. And that realization can help us approach conflicts with more compassion and a willingness to find solutions that work for everyone involved.
It's like taking a step back and remembering that we're all human. We all have our own stuff going on. Okay, so we've talked about competition and conflict. What about cooperation? How does that manifest within ourselves?
Cooperation within ourselves often looks like self-discipline, setting goals and following through with actions that align with those goals. It's about that inner harmony between our desires, our intentions, and our actions.
So it's like having a strong internal team where all the different parts of ourselves are working together towards a common goal.
I love that. It's about aligning your thoughts, feelings, and actions so that you're moving in the same direction.
And I imagine that internal alignment makes it easier to cooperate with others as well.
Absolutely. When you're clear about your own goals and values, you can communicate them more effectively to others, which makes collaboration and teamwork much smoother.
It's like having a well-oiled machine where all the parts are working together in perfect harmony. All right, this has been so insightful. I'm starting to see how understanding these internal dynamics can have a ripple effect on all our interactions, making us better collaborators, communicators, and even just better humans overall.
It's a journey of self-discovery that can lead to incredible growth and transformation, both within ourselves and in our relationships with others.
Now I'm curious, what final thought would you like to leave our listener with? Something to ponder as they continue to explore these concepts in their own lives.
I would encourage our listener to think about the conflicts they're currently facing, whether it's at work, in their relationships, or even within themselves, and ask themselves, how can understanding these forces, cooperation, competition, conflict, help me navigate these challenges and achieve my goals?
That's a great question to reflect on. It's a reminder that these concepts aren't just abstract theories. They're powerful tools we can use to shape our experiences and create a more fulfilling life.
Exactly. And remember, conflict doesn't always have to be destructive. It can be a powerful engine for growth, innovation, and positive change. The key is to approach it with awareness, empathy, and a commitment to finding solutions that benefit everyone involved.
All right, we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into cooperation, competition, and conflict. We've explored these concepts from so many angles, their definitions, functions in society, impact on our personal lives, and even their presence within our own minds.
It's amazing how intertwined they all are, isn't it?
Absolutely. We've talked about how understanding these dynamics can help us achieve our own goals and navigate those, tricky social situations. But I'm curious, what are some specific ways we can use this knowledge to create positive change? Not just for ourselves, but for the world around us.
That's a fantastic question. It starts with awareness. Once you understand how these forces are at play, you can start to identify opportunities for positive intervention. Let's take conflict, for example. Imagine you're in a workplace where conflict is constantly simmering, leading to tension and decreased productivity.
Ooh, I think we've all experienced a workplace like that at some point. Not fun.
Right. So instead of avoiding the conflict or getting sucked into the negativity, you can use your understanding of conflict dynamics to facilitate a more constructive conversation. You can help your colleagues identify the root causes of the conflict, encourage active listening, and brainstorm solutions that address everyone's needs.
So it's about shifting the perspective from conflict as a destructive force to conflict as an opportunity for growth and improvement.
Exactly. And the same principle applies to cooperation and competition. By understanding these dynamics, you can create environments that foster healthy competition, encourage collaboration, and celebrate shared success.
It's like becoming a social architect, designing spaces where people can thrive and work together effectively. Now, I'm also thinking about how this knowledge can be applied to larger societal issues. We see so much division and conflict in the world today. Can understanding these social dynamics help us bridge those divides and create a more harmonious society?
I believe you can. When we recognize that conflict is a natural part of human interaction, we can approach those differences with less fear and judgment. Instead of seeing the other side as the enemy, we can start to see them as fellow humans, with their own valid perspectives and experiences.
It's about shifting from an us versus them mentality to a we mentality.
Precisely. And that shift in perspective can open up space for dialogue, empathy, and ultimately collaboration.
It's like that quote, the only way to do great work is to love what you do. And I think that applies to building a better world, too. It starts with a genuine love and respect for humanity, even in the face of differences and disagreements.
I couldn't agree more. And understanding these social dynamics can help us cultivate that love and respect by giving us a framework for understanding why people behave the way they do, even when we don't agree with them.
It's like having a superpower. We can decode human behavior, build bridges across divides, and create positive change on both a personal and societal level.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. We're all constantly learning and evolving, and our understanding of these dynamics will continue to deepen as we gain more experience and interact with the world around us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into cooperation, competition, and conflict, what's the one key takeaway you'd like to leave our listener with?
I would say this: embrace the complexity. Human interaction is messy, unpredictable, and full of contradictions. But within that messiness lies incredible beauty and potential. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those opportunities to use your understanding of these forces to create a world where everyone can thrive.
What a beautiful and inspiring message. Thank you for sharing your insights with us today. It's been an incredible journey, and I feel like I've learned so much about myself, about society, and about the incredible power of human connection. And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, inspired you to continue exploring these fascinating dynamics in your own WN life. Remember, you have the power to make a difference one interaction at a time. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Your support helps us keep creating valuable content like this. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. Join our community for more insights into psychology and personal development. Let's grow and learn together. See you in the next video.